Welcome to the Innovation Meets Leadership podcast. Real inspiration for real innovators. If you're looking for innovation and leadership transformation, your journey starts now.
Welcome to the Innovation Meets Leadership podcast. I'm your host, Natalie Bourne. If you're enjoying these innovation insights, don't forget to hit the subscribe so you never miss a future episode. By following Innovation Meets Leadership, you'll stay at the forefront of trends, strategies, and real-world examples that are guiding today's innovators. And today is going to be no different because we are sitting down with Jeb Blount Jr. He is a division leader of digital learning solutions at Sales Gravy, where he leads marketing department, frequently hosts the Sales Gravy podcast, which is a top 200 business podcast. Welcome to the podcast, Jeb.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. And I think this is an interesting conversation. I can't wait for you to introduce the topic. And then I'm really looking forward to what leaders are going to learn from this. And even individual sellers and entrepreneurs are going to learn from this, because there's a lot of content here that is so deep, but we only have a few minutes to get into it. So we're going to hit the highlights. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, that's right. We're going to cover EQ, mindset, and sales. And so here's what I know. This is an innovation and leadership podcast. And so part of what we lean into a lot is that entrepreneurs, right, as they're getting their businesses started, there's this big thing they don't realize they have to do, and that is sell. And so I would love to kick off by just talking about this idea of that's such a bad word for some people, sales. Like, ooh, that feels a certain way when people hear it, especially if they don't have a background in sales. But here's the truth. Running a business, you have to sell if you want to survive. So I'd love to take a minute, start by just leaping into this topic of what do people do? How do they get started if sales is just not in their wheelhouse?
I think there's a misappropriation of the term sales and selling. It's not in their wheelhouse. I think it's in everyone's wheelhouse. We all have to do it. It's a well-known fact that in life you are selling all the time. And what selling means to, the layman who's not like a professional B2B seller, is that what we're doing is we are ultimately trying to build relationships with those around us. We're social creatures from the beginning. We like groups. We want to be part of groups. We want to have people like us. And some people say they don't want people to like them, but I think that's kind of a lie. We all want certain people to like us. And so when it comes to entrepreneurship, if you're someone who says like, I'm just not a salesperson. If you brand yourself as I'm not a salesperson, I think you're actually being disingenuous, especially if you're an entrepreneur. You are the first salesperson in the business that you start. If you think that marketing isn't sales, marketing is just sales with extra steps involved. So what you're doing is you are putting your brand in a place where you can have real conversations with people that are interested in utilizing your service, your products to better their future. Like people buy things so that they can get to a place that is beneficial to them. They don't buy things just because they have money to spend. I mean, some people buy things they have money to spend, but that's not who we're talking about here. So if you're starting a business and your mindset is I'm not a salesperson, you will not sell things. And in order to run a business, you have to have profits and you have to have revenue and you have to be able to cover overhead and you have to eventually, be able to bring on employees and delegate work. And all of that requires revenue. If you don't have revenue, if you don't have a bottom line that's healthy, you will not run a business, period. So stop telling yourself sales is not in your wheelhouse and start thinking about sales as a tool to grow your business in a way that allows you to reach your ideal outcome, whether that's, having a small team and just, leading a really wonderful small business in your market, or if you're looking to grow your small business into an enterprise, you have to be able to understand the art of sales so that eventually there is a team that is selling for you while you run the business. And you have to know the ins and outs of that first and foremost before you become a really successful entrepreneur, in the sense that it has longevity. You're not selling the business in 2 years. If you want something that lasts 10 years, you have to be a salesperson. And that can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So I'm kind of excited to dive into the box of what sales is for anyone, especially entrepreneurs.
That's right. So let's do it. One of the things that I love about just the craft, the trade of sales, is there's so much with emotional intelligence. I mean, that's such a big part of it. And so is mindset, like how we think, what we think about ourselves, what we think about others. And so I'd love to just peel back the onion and dig into this idea of emotional intelligence really being when you're selling. I mean, essentially, that's what you're doing. You're having an awareness of yourself, and of others, and you're understanding how to guide the conversation in a way that helps and supports the person you're standing in front of.
I love the emotional intelligence part of selling. It is the most critical part of selling. I think that there's lots we can talk about around what selling feels like. So sales feels like someone reaching out to you over and over and over and again trying to get an appointment. It's prospecting, it's filling the pipeline, and those are all parts of sales, but it's not the selling part. So I want to focus on, okay, when you actually are in front of somebody, when you really have a conversation and it's the first time you're meeting with a potential buyer, right? And what is the EQ that you have to move it from an opportunity to a closed one deal, as we would call it in sales? Like, there's revenue, there's a check in the mail, and it's hitting the bank account, and you're able to keep moving with your business and your service, and you're serving a client. What EQ means in that conversation is two very real things. The first is that sales is the art of listening. It's not the art of talking. There's way back in the day, the gift of gab. You'd have, there's lots of training out there that talks to you like what the messaging should be, how you should kind of manipulate the conversation. The person who has the most control in a conversation is not the person who's talking. I do not have the control of this conversation because I'm the one, talking my head off, being a talking head. You actually control the conversation because you're asking all the right questions. And if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a leader in a sales organization, or you're starting a business and you want to learn how to sell, learn how to listen first. Go into a conversation with the goal of talking less than the other person. It's a really small goal. You should really look for like 30% talking and 70% listening. But when I start off, my first goal is just listen more than I talk. That sounds like, hey, Natalie, I just want to know a little bit more about your business. What possessed you? If I'm selling to a smaller market, if I'm an entrepreneur and I'm trying to sell to medium-sized businesses, they might be family-owned businesses. They might be businesses that have a CEO at the top, and the organization's pretty flat. So that means that the CEO is the one who's really making all the decisions and everyone else is doing the work. And you might just go to the CEO. They're a founder just like you. You might go, hey, Natalie, what possessed you to open up this business? Like, what got into your skin that made you start this thing? And they will talk forever because people love to talk about themselves.
Right.
This is the second part of sales. The most important emotional intelligence cornerstone that you have to understand, intellectualize, and then practice is that people want to feel important. The greatest gift you can give to somebody else is the gift of importance. And when you're listening well, and that means you're asking the right questions and you want to understand them, you give them the gift of importance. When you do those two very important things, there's lots of little ways you can sort of tweak the strategy and become much better and become a master at the art and the craft of selling. But if you understand those two main tenets, you are a better salesperson than every salesperson you have likely come across, because they're talking, they're pitching, they're giving all the features of what their service and their product does for the other business. And it sounds like Charlie Brown's teacher. And you know this because we all experience a salesperson. Have you ever gone to an insurance, like an insurance booth at a local like food fair, and the insurance person only talks about their insurance products, and about 15 seconds into that, you have completely gone off into another world because you don't care anymore. That's what happens when entrepreneurs go and sell. Right?
Mhm.
You're an entrepreneur, you go out and selling, this isn't working. Why is this not working? Because you're so excited, and I get it. As someone who's the son of a founder, someone who grew up in a small business that started in our house in a little room with a couple of computers and like a will to keep going. For some reason, he just kept going. What is defeating is when you're selling and you're pushing and you're getting rejection, or you're getting nowhere. And it's not even a rejection. It's just like ghosting and nothing's really happening.
Mhm.
What I can 99% of the time guarantee is that you are going out there with all of your excitement,
Yeah.
all of your eagerness to solve a problem for the market, because you're an entrepreneur and you have all of this excitement, and you realize that other people and I don't know if I can drop French words in this podcast, but no one gives a shit. Like, I don't know how to say this to an entrepreneur more, but no one gives a shit. What they care about is how you can help them. If your product is the sleekest, coolest thing on the market, if your service is just, head above everyone else's because you have the most experience and you've been around the longest and you have the best team in the world, that means nothing to the other person sitting across the table from you. What means something to them is, you listened to me, you made me feel important, You make me feel like I can trust you and that you have my best interest in mind. And you know what? Now I'm interested in your features because it feels like you're really having a conversation with me rather than the other way around, which is I have a great solution for you. You should listen to me.
Yeah.
That
Wow.
never works.
So this is so powerful. It's a paradigm shift for people to understand that when I go into a conversation and I'm talking to someone, I need to be talking less, they need to be talking more. I need to be asking better questions and listening, actually sitting down and listening. And then when they respond, my next response needs to show that I was listening the whole time, not waiting to talk. Let's go deeper down this rabbit hole. You're having a conversation. You finally got in front of your ideal prospect. You're having this conversation. What are some other things that we should be doing as a thread or a through line in that conversation to make sure that we are focused on listening, focused on helping them arrive at the best solution, not just selling?
Yeah, the number one strategy that I like to employ, this is not the only strategy. So we're a sales organization, sales training organization, but we work on frameworks. So I like to tell people that if it works and it's stupid, it's not stupid because it works. So, whatever your strategy is there, stick to it if it's working. But what I have found to work for the hundreds and thousands of salespeople we train in a year and the millions of salespeople that have used our books over the last 20 years is that when you are sitting across from somebody, the best thing you can do is qualify them actively. Always be qualifying. Don't always be selling, always be qualifying. Here's why. I'm listening in that conversation. You have a solution, you have a product, you have an idea of a business that you believe works, that will solve a gap in the market. That's what entrepreneurship is. You see a gap in the market and you're going to go fill it and solve that problem. Well, when you are sitting across from somebody, one of the main things you have to be doing is you have to qualify them for your product or service, not the other way around. They're not qualifying you. You have to be qualifying them just as much. It's like a job interview. You're trying to find that right fit. And the reason I say qualified, it sounds something more like this. Like, Natalie, for us, like, how many salespeople do you have? You might say,
Mhm.
well, I have one salesperson. Okay, I'm knocking that off my list. It's like, you're one salesperson. This isn't going to be profitable for my business, and you're likely not in the place where you need me. But if you have 10 salespeople, have you ever bought outside sales training? If no, you're an uneducated buyer in this space, which gives me a lot of running room to educate you. But is that going to be worth the squeeze? So
Yeah.
then, if you have 10 salespeople and you do bring an outside sales training, what is your follow up program? How do you actually implement the training after I leave? What is your accountability system looking like? What are the goals of your salespeople? Like, I'm understanding their business from this particular side of the house so that I can say to them at the end of the conversation, Natalie, look, I've had this conversation with you. You've given me some great answers. And what I can tell you as a business advisor, not a salesperson, is
Mhm.
that I don't think our solution really fits. I think that based on the conversation we've had, I'm not going to serve you in the way that you're looking to be served. Or I can say, Natalie, I think that we have some great opportunities here to build a plan that works for both of us. And I'd love to work with you on a quick proposal and a strategy that we can employ so that you can feel comfortable purchasing from me if you so choose. And what that does is it gives you the ability as a salesperson, as an entrepreneur, to stop filling your pipeline with things that will never close. And I see this challenge all the time. Entrepreneurs, they have this great market innovation. And
Mhm.
there's this great line, I don't know, I can't exactly quote it, but it's very famous. It's just like, everything looks like a nail if all you're using is a hammer.
Yeah.
And so if you're constantly going out with a hammer, you're going to find a bunch of nails, but you're not going to hammer them all in 100% effectively. So do your best to qualify in those conversations and disqualify people. Because if you say, hey, I don't think you're really a good fit for our service, a lot of people will go, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm not a good fit for your service. Let me prove to you about how good I think we can fit for a purchase of your services. Because now they feel like, okay, maybe you have my best interest at heart. Let's
Yeah.
figure out a solution. And then you can be an entrepreneur and solve a problem that maybe you didn't even understand when you walked into the door.
This is, I hope, for people, I hope they understand how mind-blowing what you just said was. The fact that you would sit at a table with somebody, qualify them, and then say, "You know what? Based on the criteria, based on what we've just talked about, really loved learning about you, but this may not be the best fit for you." Most entrepreneurs probably just got their mind blown because what they wanna do is try to force that sale in where it doesn't make sense. They end up wasting time, they end up wasting money, they end up wasting their talent in a place where it doesn't fit. And so because they're not looking at fit on the front end, they end up wasting their time, money, and resources on the back end. And to me, that's a mind blower because most people who are listening to this may be thinking, why the heck would I walk away from someone sitting right in front of me? And it's because if you go look at the last 5 people like that sat in front of you, I bet you didn't close business for them either.
I want to expand on this topic as well, which is the emotional intelligence piece here that you want to understand as the lesson rather than the tactic of doing it is that when you are actively qualifying and turning away potentially bad business, what you become to that person is a trusted advisor. You become someone that 2 years down the road, they think of you because of how different that experience was. The number one predictor of closed won deals, of success in sales, is the experience of the buyer with you, bar none. If they have a positive buying experience with you, whether they close the deal, whether you close the deal or not, it means more than you can possibly imagine. I have had so many conversations. I just got an email, I don't know, 2 days ago. It was over the weekend, actually, I think. And it was a new CEO of a company that I had worked with in 2021. I was 22 years old. I didn't really know much, and I just was uncomfortable with closing the deal with that CEO at the time, who had since retired with some sales training. And I remember saying her name was Gail, and she was wonderful. And I said, Gail, I just don't think that I have the right solution for you. And it was totally a nervous thing. I'm not going to pretend that I'm a genius, that I knew exactly what I was doing and I had all the right strategy. No, this was a total fluke. I just said, I just don't think we have the right services because I didn't know what I was going to sell her. I just couldn't figure it out. And so I said, I don't think that I'm the right solution for you. And she moved on, and we haven't talked since 2021. Well, I got an email over the weekend from a CEO that took over that person's job. And they said, hey, we worked with you in the past and we had a really good experience, and we're interested in sales training now. And we'd like to start that conversation again. So now, when the timing was right and they knew that they had had that conversation, they got some great information, it was passed down to another person, they came back to us because it was a positive experience rather than I sold them something that they didn't need at a time that they didn't want it and they didn't understand it. And now you have a bad potential relationship. It comes back around. So, as an entrepreneur, the EQ part of this is know your potential outcomes for the future by qualifying somebody now where they're going to remember you as a business advisor and not as a salesperson.
This is so brilliant, and I wanna continue to kinda dive down this rabbit hole. So let's say that, you have people sitting in front of you, not great fits, let them go, release them, right, back to the wild, and then they'll probably come back later understanding that, "Hey, you know what? We had a great relationship. You did not try to sell me something I didn't need or didn't want. I appreciate that about you. Now I trust you." What about when you're sitting in front of your ideal prospect? What I find is that sometimes people try to rush that conversation. They try to force things out of order, and as a result, they also don't win the deal.
It's a challenge for everyone. It's not just you as an entrepreneur. It's me as a sales rep, as a marketing person, as the digital learning leader. It's every single person who has an idea that they love and they want to help other people. It comes from a place of eagerness. And I struggle with this myself, which is I am so eager to help. I jump the gun so much. And I can tell you that the best process you can have is one that you own. So bend the buyer's process to your sales process. This is a really big training topic. This is a huge strategic, conversation, but to distill it down to something that you can digest right here on this podcast, it's that slow down. The way that I slow down typically is instead of just trying to take things slower, maybe email every other day, try not to be like that overeager boyfriend and like texting, like, when are they going to call me? When can I get that next date is okay. If I'm in a meeting, the first thing is I'm going to do is at the end of the meeting, I'm always setting next steps. So, hey, Natalie, I think this was a great conversation. Look, I think that we should continue working down this path. You're going to benefit from it, whether you choose us or not. Let's set up a conversation for next week on Wednesday at 2 p.m. Does that work for you? You know, Work the calendar at the end of the conversation. Always have something next. If you let it go and you don't have a firm next step on the calendar, it's the win probability is really low. Like you're not shaping win probability in your favor. So first step, get a next conversation. But in those conversations, what I like to do to slow things down is exactly what I said before. Natalie, based on our conversation here, I think there's an opportunity to solve some pretty important challenges and harness some great momentum and opportunity in your business. I don't want to sell you something that doesn't make any sense. So, my first step is always to collaborate with you so that you feel comfortable about the proposal that I send you before we even get to the decision making point. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Who says no to that? I don't know. I've never had someone say no to that. But what it does is it gives you the opportunity to have possibly a second conversation. And you say, Natalie, let's sit down next week. I'm going to put together my notes. I'm going to put together my services in a way that makes sense, particular to your business. I'm going to work with my team. If you have a team, if you're an entrepreneur and you don't have a team, just say you have a team. It's totally fine. I'm going to work with my team on the back end to bring some ideas to the table that I think you are going to really appreciate being able to discuss before we move into a decision making stage.
Mhm.
So let's get together next week. And then you get together, you have to have a real conversation. You need to be prepared. You can't just walk in and just, wing it. But then that second conversation is I'm getting down to brass tacks. I'm really qualifying them down to like the really small areas of their business because now they've let me in the door and I have the opportunity to have a business conversation with them, not a sales conversation, a business conversation. Once I've done that, then I'm building a proposal and I might send it to them. I might say, "Hey, I built this for you. It's a preliminary draft. You don't want to send the first draft, but a preliminary draft. Natalie, take a look at this. Is there anything in here that you would like to change, shift, work on so that it makes sense for you?" It creates buy-in. You want them to give almost as much effort as you're giving to this whole process. If they're not respecting your time, if they're not getting back to you, if they're not giving you the information you need to put a real proposal together, you need to move them down the priority list. They are not going to be a buyer likely, but you can keep working them at a level that makes sense for your effort and your time and your investment. And so, if you are working through the sales process, the way to slow that down with an ICP and not jump the gun is to bring them into your sales process as a collaborative partner. Then, when they get to the buying decision, you have made it through your entire sales process where you keep them in your circle, your business advising, you're giving them the opportunity to collaborate, you're making it almost impossible for them to say no.
So, what I love about this is in technology, we have a thinking principle called design thinking. And it's really this idea that you don't just go create something in a silo, you co-create it with other people. And then that way they actually buy into the solution because they've been a part of the creation. And that applies perfectly to what you're saying here in the world of sales, which is if I'm working hand in hand with my client and I'm leading them through the right process, I'm slowing things down to make sure that they're connecting and that we're co-creating, that we're actually going to get to a solution that we both believe in. And that's what you want because now they're fighting for that solution just as much as you are, not you shoving a forced solution down their throat and hoping that they buy in. And I love what you said about let's meet on this preliminary thing. There is nothing worse than throwing a proposal over the fence and just praying that the person doesn't have complete sticker shock and they, ghost you after the fact because you shocked them. And when you're co-creating, that shock really doesn't exist because you're building it together.
I want to add a layer to this, which I've been recently really throwing into my initial conversations, which is Natalie, before I get going, and as we have this conversation, what I would like to ask of you is that if you choose to work with us, that's fantastic. But if you choose not to work with us, would it be fair for us to sit down and have a quick conversation after you've made the decision to not work with us so that I can learn a little bit more about why you made that decision? And would that be fair with you? And most people say yes. And if they have other competitors, if you're working in a competitive market, you might say something like, look, I know you're working with a few different vendors and you're looking at some different proposals. I want to put my best foot forward, but at the end of this, I may not be the winner. Is it okay if we sit down after you made the decision just so that I can learn and become better and serve the next person as best as I possibly can? Would that be fair for to you and me? And they usually say yes. And then you can have an after action report with the person who told you no, which is as an entrepreneur so valuable as you're filling out the market. I mean, if you ever watch Dre Baldwin, I would recommend you go check out Dre Baldwin's content. He has this really interesting mindset around entrepreneurship, which is you don't always have to have the solution first. You can have an idea, but go sell the idea and then build the solution afterwards. Because a lot of entrepreneurs come to the table with the hammer. They come to the table with everything that they're going to solve the problem with in mind. And then they get into a real conversation. They realize, I wasn't thinking about what they were thinking about. And you don't want to come to the market with something that's completely fully completed and full-fledged, and then there's no market there. Like that's a really big challenge. So
I'm I'm laughing, Jeb, because this is so much of what I talk about in my book. My background's in product development, so a lot of times I'm screaming from the rooftop. As someone who develops a product, don't go develop the full product and then pray that people will buy it. you have to be having conversations in the napkin sketch phase, and then in the prototype phase, and then in the final phase with real customers. And what I love and didn't even realize right until this moment is how much if you do it right, the product development process is so aligned with the sales process. Like, it's kind of common sense if you live in the product development world. Why would you wait until the very end? Why would you wait a year and then go try to sell your first thing? Like, go talk to people about it now and see if it even resonates before you go put in all this time, money, effort to build a slow moving train wreck, right?
It is a slow moving train wreck unless you have a stroke of genius, right? And you have the right product. But most people have to customize what they do, and there's iterations of this. And I'd like to go back to the buy-in and collaboration and the bringing someone into your world that allows them to feel the ownership of what you are doing as well, because they're bringing it into their business, and you want them to have ownership of this thing. Are you aware of the IKEA effect?
Yes.
So if you aren't, right, the IKEA effect is really simple. It's this economic study. It's really, really cool. It's behavioral economics. And the IKEA effect is that IKEA has perennially the highest level of customer satisfaction of like most of any company on earth. And you go to IKEA and you walk through the store and they have you on this thing and they give you Swedish meatballs at the end and you spend $450 on crap you didn't need. And you go to your house and you've got screws and instructions that don't make any freaking sense. And I can't build anything. My wife won't let me touch anything, but I'm building this bookcase that I don't understand. How is it backwards? It's a bookcase. I don't know. And at the end of it, I build that bookcase and I put it in my house and it's a little wobbly. And I go, wow, didn't that thing look awesome? Honey, come look at this bookcase I built. The IKEA effect is that when you have investment, when you put time and energy into building something, you love it more than when you buy that bookcase off the shelf and you put it in your house and you're like, you know what? It's not the right color.
Right.
The IKEA effect is that when you have buy into something, you are so much more likely to have satisfaction and ownership of that whatever project, item, whatever it is that you are doing in your business. If you can help people have that IKEA effect, your success rate will be so much higher than if you were just shoving a product or service out into the world and just collecting paychecks from people who ultimately might be a good customer or ultimately might not be a good customer and you have no idea what's happening in between.
Gosh, this is so brilliant. I can't believe it. We're out of time. We could have these conversations for another hour. This is awesome. Where can people find and follow you and get a hold of some of this content? As a matter of fact, I've got two of my favorite books from your dad, Sales EQ and then also Objections. And these are awesome. These are awesome books. You don't know the number of times I tell people just get the content and then go from there and you'll figure it out. But like, how can people find and follow you personally as well?
Yeah, I love that you brought up the books. First and foremost, we are not a company that hides our sales training behind, big paywalls. You can find all of our content in the 17 books, 18 books. I don't know. We've got another one coming out this year, got another one coming out next year. I think we've got two. We have written the book on sales, period. So go to amazon.com, go pick out our books. We've got everything from prospecting to leadership to closing and negotiating, AI and sales and everything in between. So all of our content is in our books. So go there and find those as Jeb Blount, or you can find Sales Gravy and you'll find that content. If you're looking to learn from me, the best thing to do is go to salesgravy.com and look around our site and just find some good resources. I build all of the downloadable free resources on salesgravy.com/resources. You can find me on Sales Gravy University, which is our learning platform. Many of the content contributors there are world-renowned sales experts. It's not just us. So you can find lots of great items there. Take a free course, use the code free course at checkout. And then to connect with me specifically, what I would tell you is connect with me on LinkedIn. Shoot me a message when you connect with me. If you are interested in having a deeper conversation, if you connect with me and you don't send me a message, I have no idea. And I'm doing my best, but I have a lot of other things on my plate. So connect with me it's Jeb Blount Jr. on Sales Gravy. There's two Jeb Blounts, Jeb Blount Sr. I'm the taller, better looking one. So go to that page and then connect with me, shoot me a note. And I post lots of things. I host the Sales Gravy podcast as well. So like, subscribe, and follow this podcast right here. And then immediately go to Spotify, Apple, salesgravy.com and go to our podcast, like and subscribe and follow. And I look forward to having conversations with people who are interested in sales and the art of sales and entrepreneurship. It's what we love to do. I'm always available for those conversations.
Well, this has been so awesome. Thank you so much for your time. I'll tell you what, I have been learning from their platform for years and just so much wealth of knowledge and information. And I'll just give the quick plug. It's not going to be a boring business book. It's really exciting and interesting. And there's so much psychology in what they do that I just highly, highly recommend it. So, look, to our listeners, thank you so much for joining the Innovation Meets Leadership podcast. Remember, don't just get out of the box, break the box and set it on fire. Let's go transform something.
Thank you for joining us for the Innovation Meets Leadership podcast. Be sure to subscribe to our show on iTunes. Follow us on Instagram or Facebook at Innovation Meets Leadership, and visit our site at innovationmeetsleadership.com for more innovation resources.
Hey, my new book is out, Set It on Fire, The Art of Innovation. Click on the link to learn more. And don't just get out of the box, break the box and set it on fire. Let's go transform something.